Hello everyone. Welcome to Ocean Friday. We have a really special guest, and I'm very excited to share this interview with you guys. I want to introduce Dr. Nichols, also known as Jay. He has a incredible list of achievements and accomplishments when it comes to the ocean conservation world. And Dr. Nichols, Jay, welcome, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Right, thank you. It's really good to see you and connect virtually, and looking forward to our chat.
Yeah, me too. I guess that's the one positive thing about COVID is that we're still able to connect and do things like this and get great information out to the world. So going into our chat here, I just wanted to give a little background on you in case I know my viewers might not be as familiar with you as the ocean conservation people. So you have actually founded and co-founded some really amazing foundations and organizations, just to name a few of them: Wild Coast, Sea Turtles, Too Rare to Wear, and the Live Blue Foundation. On top of that, you've also been a director and worked with a lot of really great conservation groups: the Blue Ocean Institute, the International Sea Turtle Society, the California Academy of Science. Your bio is super badass. I love everything that you've done. So if you could, as we dive in, pun intended, if you could start off with, what really inspired your love for the ocean and getting into this work? Everybody I find that's in this world has had some sort of kind of pivotal moment that really they can look back and be like, that was the moment I realized that I fell in love with the water.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I'm really glad that that's the approach that you've taken, is to really honor the emotional connection. And I think we leave it out. I was taught, maybe I'm from a different generation, but I was taught to leave the emotion out of it,
Yeah.
and that doesn't work. It's a bad strategy. For exactly the reason you just said, that we are all doing this work because of our emotional connection.
Yeah.
It's the first and most important motivation. Of course, we're concerned. Maybe we're a little bit scared about the future. We believe in justice. We like clean oceans. We like healthy oceans. But at the base of that is that emotional connection. And I'm just like everybody else who fell in love with the feeling of being in the water or near the water or under the water. And I was like, I like this. I feel better here. How do I do this more and make a career of it? So became a marine biologist, and I've done lots of cool things with lots of cool people and organizations that you've mentioned, and still do. But that you're right. That's that core question. Like, what hooked you?
Yeah.
To use a metaphor, or what hooked you and did not let you go? What was the thing that just brought you in? Jacques Cousteau calls it the net of wonder. Like,
Yeah.
what was the experience that got you tangled in that net of wonder that you could never get out of? Uh, and everybody's got their stories. I've got mine, but just as a kid, I was. Uh, they called me shy back then. Now they would say I was introverted, and I stuttered, and I was just a little less comfortable on land than in the water. I just like being underwater because people don't ask you questions underwater.
Right. The
And if
anxiety goes away. Um, I,
Yeah,
I personally struggle with anxiety and depression. So for me, being in the water, it is this just freeing experience. No one's judging you. You don't have to worry about questions or being judged. It's a wonderful world.
yeah. I mean, for me, it was just, I didn't like to speak out loud. I didn't like the sound of my voice because it was hard to understand, and still kind of is. Sorry. And the underwater, you don't have to deal with it. So that, it wasn't like some whale swam up to me and looked me in the eye and said, "Jay, be a marine biologist," or something like that. It was more just that the peace that I found. And I said to myself, I want a job that affords me uh, this peace. And so there, at the time, didn't seem like there were many options. marine biologist being one of them, maybe pro surfer or something, um, hazmat diver, I don't know. But so I went the marine biology route and studied sea turtles for a long time because of a strong affinity for them, and you know, work as a researcher, and you know, but at the back of my mind was always like, what was that thing, you know? And it's for you too. It's like you find relief from anxiety in the water, so you align your life with water,
Yeah.
and whether it's work or play or your social life or your hobbies or all of the above, um, it's because of that connection. And so as a scientist, I became curious about that thing, that connection. So
Well, and so, and this is going off of our outline that I sent, but sea turtles. So they're your favorite. I love that in your short bio. Your short bio is literally marine biologist, water lover, turtle nerd, embarrassing dad, and creator of useful words. I love that. I feel like that's something that I would write as a bio for me, but it would be shark lover. But I do love sea turtles, and so what draws you to sea turtles specifically?
you know, ever since I can remember, I liked their shape. Uh, as a kid, you know, something, I don't know if you remember Pogs. They're like these things that kids traded and stuff. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
like turtles are like giant animal Pogs in a way. So there's something that's weird. I know it sounds like the dumbest answer you've ever heard about why do you
No.
like an animal, but there's something like robust and cool about just the way just turtles in general. And I think um, it makes them just sort of aesthetically interesting. That's not why I became a turtle biologist, but that, you know, I loved catching turtles as a kid. There was something just like, oh yeah, look, I got this turtle, and it's like this,
Yeah.
it's like animal in a box kind of thing, and they're cool and rugged. And then it was like we used to paint numbers on their shells and let them go, and then sometimes recapture them, and it was like, you know, a game for us. But
Yeah.
that's what I do as a biologist too. So really,
Right.
it's like,
It's like when you were young, that was already starting. But it's
yeah, oh
really
totally.
and just without you even knowing. And it's so funny that you bring up pogs because when I was young, I had pogs and I had a shark pog that I literally put in my backpack, my dolphin backpack, and would ride to school with it as like my good luck charm. And as going through stuff in my parents' house, I actually found that pog and I was like, I need to keep this. So
Oh, that's cool.
it's so funny that you brought that up, but I like how you say prepackaged animals. They are very just so symmetrical and just really, truly beautiful creatures.
And I love turtles, and I love math, and so I love water, and so it kind of makes sense that you may go into sort of a quantitative career in turtle biology. Um, but you know, the geometry of turtles, the scute counts, the shapes, the morphology, the mark recapture research, the genetics, you know, the DNA sequencing work, the tracking, satellite tracking. There's sort of a math meets ocean meets pogs meets geometry.
Meets joy.
There's joy, yeah. If you're a turtle geek or nerd, it's joy. Uh, but then there's a whole other level that's kind of like the touchy feely side. Um, and feel free to roll your eyes if you need to, but the um, the symbology of turtles, they've, you know, like sharks,
Yeah.
all people for all history that have spent time with them have revered them in some interesting ways, whether they're, you know, totem animal or spirit animal, or just simply animals that people write songs about and make art about. That's not a new thing at all.
Yeah.
You see it on the walls of caves and in ancient literature. And so the turtle form has always inspired the human mind. And I like being part of that tradition. And there's another level where, so I was adopted as a baby, as given up, as they say, then adopted. And then there's just an affinity there. Like the turtle mama leaves her eggs on the beach and goes away and doesn't come back. There's no parental care. But then the ocean, or maybe some people temporarily, and then the ocean adopt the baby turtles. And I don't know, they just had some, I don't talk about that as a scientist so much. It's more the psychology of it, but had some affinity for the animals in that regard.
Which makes sense.
And
I can see
yeah,
that correlation. I think that there is something very spiritual about the ocean and nature. I mean, the ocean is something that has been around since the beginning of time, and there's things that we're still learning about it and don't understand. And I think that's one of the things that I love about that, you know, feeling that connection. There's things that are in the ocean that are designed, speaking of mathematics, that were they ever designed that way? So to
yeah.
have that, amazing connection and psychological, I mean, I think that's very cool. I think
And
that's,
I think if we leave it out, it's going to hurt our chances of solving these problems. I think that's really the other piece of it. Is if we talk about our deep psychological connection with turtles and sharks and water and birds and fish, I think we attract more people to care,
yes.
not less. There may be some super cynical, eyeball rolling scientists who roll their eyes and say, "Oh, these people aren't serious." I say, go home or join us. I mean, that's kind of
Yeah.
like, get over yourself, get out of your cynical little sad box, and get 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 working. And I think you create a much longer much bigger blue movement that lasts a lot longer by including the neuropsychology
Yeah.
and the millennia long spiritual connection with nature. Why would you ever leave any of that out? It's like shooting yourself in both feet and then trying
Yeah.
to run a marathon. Um, and so, if you put a little point on it, the ocean conservation community, sorry, I thought I turned that off. Ocean conservation community really has focused more on the facts and the fear and the guilt and maybe sometimes the anger. And that's the environmental movement in general. I think now we're realizing that the joy and the happiness and even your fuzzy sharks as a concept suggests that you just totally get it. That
Yeah. Thank you.
if we get off of the like be afraid of sharks, and then help us save them, that is not gonna work.
Right.
Or be
Yeah.
afraid of the future or hate humanity, let's work together. And this doesn't work. Um, so I think it's just as much as it is actually real. Like, I'm a marine biologist because I fell in love with water. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
Here's why. Join us. I think it's a warmer, more open door approach that builds a bigger movement. And so that's kind of what I've been thinking a lot about the last 10 years, really, is still working on sea turtle conservation and biology and plastic pollution and bycatch issues and mentoring students, but really bringing more neuroscientists and more psychologists to the table to help us get our message right, or at least
Yeah.
improve it a little bit. So
Well, and
that
I
was
think that
a
that's
little
really
pivot.
strong because you can get really depressed doing
Oh
ocean
yeah.
conservation work. Like it's a beautiful world and there's amazing things to see and experience. But when you really understand the hard facts and what's happening, it can really bring you down. And so I love that you're bringing in this positive fact, and and we'll get to the Live Blue Foundation, and well, actually, I mean, we can go right into it, because how
Yeah.
I actually learned of what you were doing was when I kind of re-engaged in my love of the oceans, because I originally went to school for automotive design and realized I'm using my creative powers to put a bunch of crap back into the world. And I then switched to sculpture, and I made some really, really bad art. And then I started sewing sea creatures, and my professor was like, "Why are you sewing these?" And I said, "I have no idea." So he said, "Bring them into the studio. Let's figure out what you're doing." And I started doing a bunch of research. And around that time, it was around 2007-ish, that you had started the Blue Marble Project. And
Yeah.
so I bought this giant bag of blue marbles and just like, "You get a blue marble." It's like Oprah of blue marbles, like, "And you get a blue marble." And that's when I started learning about your work. And so if you could talk about that, what catalyzed that project, because I think that was so, and it's still moving today, which is
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
super awesome.
Yeah. Well, so I just recognized I was at the time there was a lot of bad news. There still is a lot of bad news about the ocean, and every ocean event or lecture I went to made me feel worse and worse and worse. And I had to figure out how to keep myself going in this sort of time when all of the big voices in ocean conservation were lecturing on just like death and the end of the world, and
Yeah.
doom and gloom was kind of the recipe. And to the point where two leading voices called themselves Doctors Doom and Dr. Doom and Dr. Gloom, like jokingly but accurately. And they weren't doom and gloomy people. They were marine biologists.
Speaking the facts.
Yeah. And so I remember feeling like, wow, I'm all in and I'm feeling like getting all out. No wonder we're not getting anywhere here.
Yeah.
Because I mean, all of my education kind of points me in this direction, and I've committed my life to this work, and you're burning me out. So I thought there's got to be a better way to communicate about the ocean. And it sounds so obvious now, jump, however many years forward, nearly 15 years. Sounds so obvious, but back then it really wasn't. And so I gave a lecture at the New England Aquarium in their IMAX theater, and I just brought a bag of marbles, and it was the screen was like 7 stories tall.
It's
Like,
a
no joke.
beautiful aquarium. And
Yeah, it's just,
yeah.
it's a nice venue. And I was a little nervous. I was like, whoa, this is a big theater. There are gonna be a lot of people here, and the screen is really big. Like my PowerPoint game better be on. But then I thought, you know what? I don't want to just bum everybody out more like we
Yeah.
always do, but with a big screen. So I brought a bag of blue marbles, and I stood at the door as people came in, and I gave everybody one. And they were like, "What's this for?" And I was like, "You'll find out." But I didn't even know yet. I was like,
Right.
"I'm giving everybody a blue marble. I don't know what the F I'm doing here." And the answer was, "You'll find out, because I will figure out why I'm giving you a blue marble
I
by the
too
end
will
of my
find
talk."
out.
Yeah, we will find out together. Which is not the worst way to do things, but it's generally not recommended. Like, have a plan is usually kind of what they say to do. Uh, so by the end of the lecture, it got to the end of the lecture, the last slide is the famous blue marble, and it was always the last slide in my slide deck, is the famous blue marble photograph, which is the NASA astronauts took this photo of the whole Earth from space. And it was the first photograph of the whole Earth. And it's the most reproduced photograph of all time. And so I always had that at the end, and I was like, that photo is literally called the blue marble. You're all holding blue marbles. Okay, let's do this, whatever it is. So I just said, take your blue marble, and what did I say? I said, hold it to your eye. So I have my blue marble right here. Just said, hold it to your eye and look through it. And it was the coolest thing to look out on an IMAX theater of people looking through a blue marble, like at a screen, a 7-story screen with the original blue marble photo. It was just like, from my venue, I was like,
Yeah.
wow, look at y'all. Y'all look really funny and cool, and this is great. And then I was like, all right, take the blue marble and hold it to your heart and think of somebody that you want to say thank you to. And then so everybody takes the marble from their eye and moves it to their heart. And I said, no, think of what's their name? Just think of the person you need to say thank you to. And then everybody got kind of, you could feel the room just like get soft.
Yeah.
Like everybody's heart opened up a little bit.
I'm
Which is
picturing the
great.
Grinch, like, and his heart grew.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then I said, now close your eyes and put the blue marble on your forehead and imagine, and this is where it gets like pretty hippy dippy, but and I was like, people are doing it. This is
Right?
great. Hold it on your forehead, close your eyes, and imagine when you actually give them the blue marble. Just imagine that moment and what you might say.
Yeah.
And to make sure they know that you really mean it. And imagine, just in your mind's eye, imagine um, how good you'll make them feel by just saying, hey, thanks for saving sharks. You rock. I have this marble for you. And put the marble in their hand and pass it on. And like you could make their day.
Yeah.
You might make their week. And you've given out enough marbles to know that some people are truly touched. And it's very special that you recognize the good things they do. And then you follow it up with this very, very simple, but really nice little gift. So I did that. I did that routine in the IMAX theater. And the feedback on that lecture was like a gazillion times better than any other talk I'd ever given.
Yeah.
And people said, I did what you said. I recognized somebody who brings their bag to the grocery store. I just stopped them and said, hey, that's cool. Thank you. Here's a marble. uh, these days it's a little trickier with COVID and social distancing, and you make sure your marbles are really clean, or I don't know, but
Yeah.
um, but it's unusual and it's basically free, and it's the missing piece of what we do, which
Yeah.
is it's not even that it's missing, it's just unspoken.
I think it's something
Um,
that we forget about. We get so in the weeds of the facts and the doom and gloom, and to put we're literally taking something tangible. You're making something intangible tangible by saying like,
yeah.
I appreciate you, and I'm wrapping into like this little appreciation marble. And so that when
Exactly.
you look at it, you can literally hold and feel my gratitude for you. And I
Right.
think that that is something that, I mean, that's why it's lasted over a decade, near 15 years of still working, because people need that. They need the simplicity. Instead of getting someone a diamond or a new car, like, here's just a marble. I appreciate you and thank you for what you're doing. And at the end of the day, ocean conservation, like, yes, one person can make a difference, but a lot of one people's adding up can truly make a difference, and coming together is what makes waves. So I
That's
I
right.
think that and I love the story behind that, the fact that you followed your gut. When I talk about even artwork things and give any sort of lectures, it's always about follow your gut. A lot of times we overthink things. Sometimes you just have to ride the wave of magnificence and just go with the flow. So I absolutely love that story. So that eventually led, along with a bunch of other things, to the book Blue Mind.
That's
Um,
right.
so, I mean, I read in your bio that it took a couple years to get from the Blue Marble Project to actual Blue Mind. But now the Blue Mind book is in multiple languages and all over the globe, and you teach on it and lecture. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that basic idea that water, the symbol of the blue marble, and the fact that we live on a water planet, um, and that our emotional connection is important, was something that I've been thinking about, and it manifested itself in this object that has been useful and viral by design, you could say. But I'm interested in the science of it, like, and why, like, why do gifts give why do giving why does giving a heartfelt gift connect us so deeply, and why do all cultures give gifts, whether it's something you made, a piece of art, or something like a blue marble, or a meal, a bottle of wine, whatever the gift that you give is, it connects us. And so what is the neurochemistry of gift giving? and connection. So I just became more and more curious about all of that, especially around water. So, you know, all the different, all these different emotions, but through a water lens just became my obsession as a scientist. And so I went looking for research on that. And I was really looking for a book because I found books about your brain on music and your brain on happiness and your neuroplasticity and neuroeconomics. So your brain on problem solving and decision making.
Yeah.
And I thought there had to be a book about your brain on the single biggest feature of our planet,
And what
water.
keeps us alive, literally.
Yeah. So I figured, okay, there's a book out there. I will find it. I will read it, and then I will apply it to my work because I'm interested in this. And I couldn't find the damn book that I thought must exist. And then I thought maybe it was in another language or out of print or it was just obscure. And so I put on my, super searcher, researcher hat, couldn't find it. And I realized, okay, this book doesn't exist, but somebody needs to write it. So I tried to convince a bunch of different people that they should write it because I want to read it. And I think other people would too. And I failed to convince them. I guess my power of persuasion skills were not working. And finally, I pitched. This is a long explanation, but I finally pitched the book to a guy named Oliver Sacks, the late great neurologist, brilliant man, a mentor in many ways, a wonderful writer, a lover of music, and a lifelong lover of water. Avid diver and swimmer, and he said he got his best ideas in the water.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy, Dr. Sacks, he'd be like the dream writer of the book that I want to read. Like I'd read the hell out of that book if he wrote it. And so I pitched it to him, and he said, "It's a fine idea. You do it."
Really,
I was
that's
like,
not
oh,
really the answer I was looking for, but
yeah. I was like, I'm ready to be your grunt worker and just run around and do all the work you need and feed you information and you write it. And if I got to mention the acknowledgement, I would be thrilled to be acknowledged, in the acknowledgement section of one of his books would have been like a dream. And so when he said that, I was like, wow, I could feel like the earth under my feet tilted a little bit towards, oh crap, I'm sliding in another direction that I wasn't headed in. At least I didn't know I was headed in, which was write the book. So 5 years later, after he said that, so this is not like a quick thing. This is not it's not shallow in any way. It's about as slow and deep and grounded, and I guess intentional at the end of the day as a thing can be. Took me 5 years to get my act together and end up with a book. We pulled together Blue Mind summits, so that was the way I researched it, was to bring not just call people or go visit them, but bring people together in small groups of usually 75 people maximum. And the best neuroscientists, the best water explorers, not just oceans, but pools and lakes and rivers, and get together in a room and just wrestle with questions that have never been even asked before, let alone answered. And then I'm just like taking notes and recording everything. And that was like the raw material for the work, for the book, still is the raw material for the conversation. And so did that for many years, wrote this book called Blue Mind. And it just turns out I wasn't the only one who wanted to read it.
Yeah.
It filled a spot on the shelf that was otherwise empty, you know. And so, like you said, it's been translated to a number of languages and formats. And, you know, it's a hard book to shelf because you think, okay, this is an ocean book. Let's put it in the ocean section in the bookstore. And you go, it's not really an ocean book. It's a water book. And there really isn't a water section per se.
No.
So it kind of goes, okay, let's put one copy in the ocean section and one copy in the lakes and rivers section. But it's really more neuropsychology. So maybe let's stick a copy in the neuropsych section, or some people would say self-help. And then you start really getting into it, and it's like, okay, but there's some surfing and diving and swimming. So maybe it should go in the water, aquatic activities, aquatic sports section. And I love that about it, because at the end of the day, this work, our lives, in fact, don't fit into a category in a bookstore.
Yeah.
Like, which category in the bookstore would you put your life? Like, the appropriate answer is dumb question. That's the appropriate answer to that question. Like, you're annoying. That question annoys me. Don't ask me that question. Don't insult me with that kind of question. My life doesn't fit into a bookstore category. So why would this topic fit into one category? It doesn't. So that was the ramp up to it. And then since publishing the book, it's just been utterly fascinating to work with so many people like you, communicators, artists, explorers, lots of researchers, educators who recognize that the idea is useful and that we don't teach it well. You know, I don't know about you. Did you ever learn about anything remotely resembling blue mind science and practice in school?
No, and that's what you know. I've had conversations with a few other people that are kind of in my lane where we're not really meant for science or math. Like, math hurts my brain. I specifically went to art school so I wouldn't have to take math and science. You know, I'd rather color numbers. But I still have that passion for the ocean, so I'm using what I'm good at to do that. But the conservation world, it's almost like there's a stigma that unless you are a marine biologist, you kind of like don't fit in. But the blue mindset really is, no, you can be a teacher, you can be, you know, a storekeeper, own a bar, be a dog walker, and be, you know, a marine ocean conservation supporter. Because, you know, growing up, we want to put people in buckets. We want to put them in a category, you know, go to school, pick one thing, stick with it, be in that job for the rest of your life. You know, growing up, my parents actually said that we should have a thing in life where when you get to a middle-aged area, you could just switch degrees, switch what you're doing in life, because who wants to pick one thing for the rest of your life? That's really daunting, especially at a young age when the brain isn't even fully formed yet. So that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, that wasn't something that anyone had said to me. And having this love for the water was always kind of underneath. And I was born and raised in Ohio. So to really have a fascination with the water, especially sharks, people were like, we don't have any sharks in the lake. What? You don't belong here. And it is a very fascinating thing, because in the same breath, they'd say, oh, I really need to get to the beach. I feel so rejuvenated when I'm at the beach or when I'm near water. I'm like, see, there's something to that.
You're connected too. We all are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think your point, you know, if we leave ocean conservation up to ocean scientists, we're screwed. It's over. I mean, and I say that as a scientist.
Yeah.
So we have left ocean conservation up to the ocean scientists and researchers. And how's it going? Ain't going so good. I mean, it's getting better, I have to say, but I think it's getting better because we've moved more towards, you know, where you are, you know, your lane, so to speak. We realize that we can't science our way through this, and we can't fear and guilt our way through this. It just does not work. Facts, fear, and guilt, they work for a burst of time. We need to get the science right. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we should invest more and do more research. There's no question about that. But if we think that our journal articles and reports are going to move the needle as much as it needs to be moved, we have no clue about how the world works. And I think that's the problem. So I recognized early on that I was publishing all kinds of sea turtle articles, and they were going into these great journals and having impact in my sciencey academic circle. But none of the people that I work with who are actually saving turtles, like on the daily basis,
Yeah.
none of them read any of my papers. I say that again. None of the people who are saving turtles read a single academic publication.
And if they didn't read it, chances are someone who's not in that world, they sure as shit didn't read it.
Yeah. So really, it's like there are like 8 people who are reading my papers, and I know them on a first name basis. So that, okay, but that's academia. So
yeah,
I'm interested in problem solving. And so if you're interested in problem solving, you pull the tools that you need. So the things that helped us save sea turtles in Mexico were in the area that I worked. Of course, good science. You want to know what's up. But after that, you need to know what to do. And the doing part is not more science. It's rolling up flyers, putting up flyers in the little markets, because people didn't have internet.
yeah.
You couldn't just say, hey, let's make a website, we'll communicate. We'll make a website in Spanish, we'll communicate. If nobody's going to websites, or they haven't invented websites yet. So, flyers, film nights on the plaza in these communities. They call it community-based conservation. Just get everybody involved. Like when you put a satellite transmitter on a turtle, you're not allowed to release that transmitter with a bunch of scientists. You have to have a crap load of kids and families, and the local priest gets to bless the turtle. You name the turtle after the daughter of a fisherman that's maybe a turtle hunter.
I love that. That's because
It's just,
I think because it takes all types of people to get that message and the work done. I remember years ago, when I started doing this, it wasn't called Fuzzy Sharks, it was called Ocean 4, because at that time there was actually 4 oceans. That has since changed. And then the bracelet company came out, and I started getting emails, where's my bracelet? Where's my bracelet? And so I rebranded once I reinvigorated and started this up again, because I had kind of put it on the back burner to do my corporate, life job. But it was amazing to me that when I would reach out to certain people in the ocean conservation world, whether it was a smaller foundation or kind of big, they'd say, well, your social media numbers aren't that big. And, you just do artwork. You don't actually do any work in the field. And I'm like, but it takes all of us. Who do you think made your website or your graphics or your logo? I'm fully aware that you probably should not have me tagging stuff on a boat. Like, I'll probably spell the scientific name wrong. I can't pronounce it sure as shit. But I could probably draw it. I could do infographics for you. I can create a logo. I can do a website. Like, it takes multiple different parts of the brain and talents to push this effort forward. And so that's...
Yeah, you should be on the boat, by the way. I'm going to disagree with you, interrupt and disagree.
Okay.
You should be on the boat so that you are more and more inspired to do what you do. I mean,
True.
I'm just going to say, I don't think you should be captaining the boat. I shouldn't either. But
I'm glad we have that down. So neither of us will captain, but we'll definitely be on the boat. Because I agree.
Yeah.
Being on the boat, I love being on the boat for sure. But I love meeting and talking to people like you that get it. That it's going to take multiple different mindsets. It's going to take a community to truly get the needle moved and inspire other people. I like to say that I brainwash tiny children to like sharks, because if you catch them out of the womb and you say, hey, look at this amazing environment, look at these amazing creatures, whether they're sharks, cuttlefish, sea turtles, if you foster that love early for the blue marble, they're going to grow up loving it and wanting to conserve it. And it takes all kinds.
And then identify themselves, this whole complicated thing called self-identity. If your self-identity is about, you're like, I'm an ocean person, I'm a water person, I'm a person who protects endangered species. That's who I am. Oh, by the way, I'm 5. That goes in deep. And that's scary to the status quo that doesn't want 5-year-olds to be saying, hey, I'm an ocean warrior, and I love the ocean, and you can't stop me. So exactly right. And they're not reading the journal articles. Most 5-year-olds, maybe a few here and there, but
But
so
nothing is
it's
scarier than a 5-year-old calling you out at a restaurant for using a plastic straw. Like,
right. Kindly
kind,
though, that is
kind,
the key.
kindly, yes,
That is
kindly.
when I teach young people, including my own, I always remind them to use kindness, because just some little jerk or a big jerk, adult jerk or a kid jerk is just a jerk. So
Yeah,
let's not train up a generation of jerks that are,
100%.
polarizing even more. But you mentioned, it's this idea of brainwashing, and think of neuromarketing. There's a field called neuromarketing, which is essentially using neuroscience to brainwash people
Yeah,
into buying things they don't want or need. And somebody was like, once said, "You're doing neuromarketing for the ocean and for the environment." And I said, "No, a neuromarketer doesn't want you to know they exist. A
correct.
neuromarketer wants to be invisible, do their thing behind the curtain, kind of like Oz. It's just kind of like, we're not even here, but we're going to do science on your brain to figure out how to make you think you want and need our product. We're going to use that science. We're going to get under the hood, and you're not even going to know that we did it." That's neuromarketing. Neuroconservation is different. Neuroconservation is, I want you to know exactly what we're doing. There is no curtain. By the way, I put everything in this book, and we made the book into little films. We made the book into memes, and we've translated. Not only do I want you to know what we're doing, I'm not just going to stick it on a Wikipedia page. I'm going to make sure you understand Blue Mind.
Yeah,
And we're going to use it, but you're going to have full empowerment. You're going to understand hopefully why you feel the way you do, why water makes you feel good. There's no mystery, and there's no behind the scenes to neuroconservation. It's really transparent. And I think that's kind of an important detail. So
yeah,
you may say, "Yeah, we're going to brainwash little kids," but they're going to know that we're brainwashing them,
yeah,
and so are their parents. And they're going to understand why, and they're going to understand how. And there's no kind of like hidden agenda. It's all like, hey, here's the game plan. Here's the why and the how.
yeah,
Understanding how your brain works is really cool. Who else should understand how your brain works? You. And then it's kind of up to you who else gets in there. The way we have it now is marketers understand your brain better than you do.
yes.
Political advisors understand your brain better than you do. Therefore, they're influencing you in ways that they want you to be influenced in, which is nothing new, but you should have a user's guide to your own brain. Sure,
Yeah,
that's fair.
yeah. Everyone, and I think that goes back to what we were talking about on, almost selling on fear, marketing. Aside from Fuzzy Sharks, I have my own design studio, and it's called Design Pod Studio, still ocean oriented.
Yes.
And I always tell our clients, like, selling on fear, you might have an increase for a little bit, but at the long run, like, being transparent, selling on positivity, being honest, that's what is the long run. It
Yeah.
is. And unfortunately, our world today, people are very surface and understanding their own guide to their own brain. And so I think
Yeah.
that being transparent, which is another reason why I love what you do, is it's like, hey, I've done all this. I'm not hiding anything.
Right.
Here's the actual plan, the roadmap, directions, how to
Yeah.
get there, all of it.
Yeah. I mean, the whole book is if you look for a second or two, you'll find the whole book free online, which I'm not supposed to say if I'm trying to make money, but I just said it because I'm not trying to make money. If you look around and you're like, "Oh, I would love to get that book. I don't have $11."
Yeah.
Don't worry. Like, I've read the book. We do an online book club every year in which I read the book on Facebook Live every night for 70 nights. So I've never missed a night. So I've done every night for 70 nights for 7 years, every year. So if you don't even read, you can read the book. I will read the book to you. It's all there. You can look up,
That's
Blue Mind
wonderful.
online book club. So when I say transparency, I don't know. Let's just put it this way. I don't know any other author who has even come close to doing anything like that. Like not even like the online book clubs usually are questions and answers and conversations weekly.
Yes, and you have to pay for the weekly admission.
Yeah. So free nightly for 7 years. We read the whole book and we talk about it while we're reading it. And then on the weekends, we do the deep dive into the book guide, the more discussion stuff. So the point isn't to prove how ridiculous I am, because I have proven that, I think.
I see it as
Easily.
passionate. I see it as
Yeah.
extremely passionate and in love with the water.
I love this idea, and I want 8 billion people to understand their blue mind. I want 8 billion people to have access to their blue mind, whatever that means. So if it's like a beautiful ocean like the one behind you, or it's just a public pool, or it's recognizing that your bathtub, or kind of a muddy pond on a farm, there's joy in all of that water. And so understand it, have access, and then practice it on some regular basis, whether it's daily or weekly or monthly, that you just get out there and do it, not just read about it and talk about it and know that it's there, that you actually go get wet. That's the mission. And, we've scratched the surface a bit, have a long way to go. But I'm convinced that this idea in the hands of all of us will make us healthier.
Yeah.
We know that. You and I know that. It works. Yeah. We're your anxiety, my stuttering and shyness and introversion and all of it, and countless other friends of ours and then the circle gets big when you start asking people, do you ever use water to help yourself just get through life? Hell yeah. Like the shower, the bath, the pool, the ocean, the lake, the river, the paddleboard, the kayak, the scuba gear.
Yes. Yeah.
All that.
It's funny. I love that you put it that way, because I actually, as I mentioned, I was born and raised in Cleveland. I spent my whole life there. I tried to move to the water much earlier, and then the economy crashed, and then, you get caught up in work and life, and it just never happened. And last year I finally had like an early midlife crisis where I was like, I gotta go. I gotta get to the water. And my family and friends, they'll see me doing my videos, and they're like, we've never seen Jess happier. And it's to me, that really warms my soul, because I took a chance. I moved to a city. I'm in Tampa. Never been to Tampa, just picked Tampa because I had a list of criteria that I thought would be good to be in a city.
Well, you looked at the map.
Yeah.
You're like, bay, Gulf, ocean. Good. Yeah. We're good.
Exactly. Affordable. It seemed it had a good arts community. It's not like Naples where everyone's like kind of on their way out of life. So it had a good mix, and I did it. And total transparency, I previously was on antidepressants, and I'm coming up on my 2-year mark. And, I did things in my life, and I really feel that being by the water, being able to do, because it means so much to me, being able to go out and kayak in my backyard, being able to scuba, or even just go to the beach and sit on the beach and look for shark teeth, that truly rejuvenates my soul. And it's nice to see others being like, yeah, we like that. We can see that difference. And I think that, to your point, it doesn't have to be the ocean. It can be a waterfall. It can be literally a fountain in your living room, the sound of water. Just any little thing that's related to it can really benefit someone's life. And I think this mindset, the more that we have conversations like this and kind of spread the word, I think people will start to get on. I mean, obviously they have been for quite some time now. It's just, as you're talking about, I think spreading more.
Your point, it can be any kind of water. I think it's just the key thing is do it. Define it for yourself. Like for you, so you lived and grew up, not far from the Great Lakes, yet you felt like you needed to move to the water. So somebody who grew up maybe like smack dab in the middle of Nebraska, their idea of moving to the water could be Cleveland.
Exactly.
You know,
Yes,
you're, but
100%.
so it's your choice. It's not, you know, people ask me, so what's better, a lake or an ocean or a river or a pool? I'm like, I'm not ranking those things.
Right?
It's
It's what it
you
means to
tell
you.
me. Because I know people who are like, I don't like the sand, I don't like the salt, but I love the river in the
Yeah,
mountains. I'm like, that's amazing. Or they're like, I like snow. That's water. So cool. That's your water. Some people hate pools. Some people love pools. Uh, so it isn't a judgy thing. It's more ecumenical, and it's like, so you tell me what your prescription, your blue scription is for
yeah,
yourself, and then we'll come up with a plan that puts it into action. And that plan could be you pause on the bridge on the way to work every day and look at the river. And then at home, you hang the ocean art up in a place where you'll see it. Like, and then you take a nice bath once, really long bath once a week. If you do those three things, your life's getting, all right, let's get a little bit better. And maybe you dial back on the antidepressants a little bit. You know, I'm
right.
not,
Yes, and I totally agree that there's definitely a time and place for medication. So I'm not saying
yeah,
that
yeah.
I'm not telling anyone that they should get off of
Yeah.
it
No,
at all.
I really important to state that because
Yeah,
um, I'm a turtle biologist, and you're an artist and a communication specialist. We're not here telling people what they should or shouldn't be doing
exactly.
in terms of their the medicine they need. But I can say from experience, I've seen and heard of and met and worked with many people dealing with some of the heaviest mental health challenges that you could ever imagine. Won't even go into it, but just trust me on that.
Yeah,
Um, I've seen many people dial back the massive amount of pharmaceuticals that they had in their uh, bathroom. Not just quit everything, but really dial it back in exchange for more blue mind time.
yeah.
And I'm talking about people who have not slept for years, literally,
Wow.
um, getting to a full night's sleep after spending the day on the ocean. Like you do. You go out and you spend the day on the ocean, you come back and you're like, I am so tired. The sound of the ocean lulls you to sleep, and you sleep like a baby better than you ever have.
Yeah,
Some people say that. Uh, I've seen it. I've seen people, talk to people in the morning and they're like, you know what? If that was the whole thing, that's the first time I've slept in years. What a gift. Like the feeling of a good night's sleep. When you haven't had a good night's sleep for years, we know the science.
yeah.
It's sleeplessness is bad. It's bad for you.
Very, very, very bad. And I think that at the end of the day, too, just giving into this mindset of slowing down. You know, the ocean has water has its own pace. You know,
Mhm.
snow drifts down. I mean, even a blizzard doesn't come hailing down. But I mean, so I think that it's taking the time for you, the individual. You know, the minute that we
Mhm.
can kind of de-stress in whatever manner is very, very helpful. And incorporating
And
water.
water's one way. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think it's what we're talking about here is one tool for your toolbox, but there are so many. Then doing art is another great way to. We could just substitute the word art in for water and ocean, and this conversation would make sense.
yeah,
And music, um, and exercise, physical activity is known to be good for your not just your body but your brain, and not just your brain but your social life. And so all those things, is not a competition between music and water as a therapeutic mode. It's,
right.
yes, if you can do music and water, rock it. You know,
Water
uh,
music.
yeah, exactly. Your yachty playlist or whatever makes you go.
Right.
Um,
So out of all the things that you've done, uh, what is the one thing that you're most, that really makes your heart glow, you know, that you're really, really proud of?
So I'm going to just tell you, and I'm going to probably cry my way through it, but my girl, Grace, who's just started college last week, and you
Oh,
know, she she had some health stuff for a number of years, and we weren't sure how that was. Put my glasses on so you don't have to see my crying eyeballs.
it's
Um,
okay.
she sorry, we didn't know how that was going to go, but she pulled through it, and she's strong, and but she understands the blue mind really well, and she you know, when she needs it, she goes out and gets by the water, and you know, doesn't even take her phone, which is, you know, a huge statement.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, getting just like the sadness of her leaving for college, but I mean, I've been looking forward to that for 18 years, and she she's in college. She's a freshman. She's 1 week into it, and the kind of the weird thing was we raised her as well as we could, and her sister Julia is 15 and still in high school. I want to downplay Julia because she is amazing. Um, but the day after Grace left for college, we had the fires here in California, and our
Yeah.
home burned down.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
and so the home that we raised her in, and everything in it. Um, so most of what she owns in the world is with her at college, and most of what I own fits in a large duffel bag, and other
That
than
is awful. I am so
so
sorry. That is,
yeah, I mean, and I didn't want to bring it up earlier because I wanted to have a more buoyant conversation and keep my head in happy things, but so she learned about that, you know, a couple of days after she left. You know, I called her, and obviously, but so it's been. So your question wasn't what makes you cry. Your question was makes you happy.
no,
What
no,
are
you're
you
fine.
proud of?
I greatly
I,
appreciate you taking the time to do this interview. I mean, I can't, that speaks, I think, to your passion about what you do, that you've literally lost all of your physical belongings. And I thank you so much for meeting with me. I can't even, my heart breaks for you and your family. That is
Thank you.
devastating, truly
Yeah, I
devastating.
can't even begin to describe it, adequately. But it's super weird. It's obviously sad, devastating, horrifying. If you hear breathing, that's George. He's under the table here. You know, sometimes he snores.
Mine's snoring too, so it's fine.
Uh, but you know, puts this whole concept that we've been discussing to the test. Like, so does the blue mind thing help when the shit really hits the fan? And I
Yeah,
mean, like, big time. Yeah, it does. It doesn't bring anything back. It doesn't fix anything. It doesn't, heal wounds. Literally, it helps a lot.
yeah,
And I've known that because of what we've been through throughout Grace's life and the people I work with. But um, even more clear now. I mean, I was out at the house, which is just a pile of ashes and metal
gosh,
now, and there's a creek, and I just was like, I just was feeling really bad, and everything about seeing the house was making me sad, and everything I saw that looked unfamiliar and familiar at the same time was making me sad. And so I just stripped down and jumped in the creek in a little deep spot behind the house, and didn't bring anything back.
yeah,
Didn't magically do anything. Didn't wasn't like I turned around and my house was whole again. But I felt more whole, at least slightly, because I was in the creek that I raised my kids by, and they listened to that creek every night as they fell asleep, the sound of the water. And so that creek did its job a little bit more. And now my job is to make sure none of my crap, none of the mess that is formerly called my home, make sure none of that ends up in the creek. You know, before any rains come, I need to do a major cleanup. And I can hear him, but I can't see him, and he's snoring somewhere. He's outside this door. Well, yeah, he's on the other side of the door snoring. Okay. Yeah. You have to get a look at George here. Hey, George. And just say hi.
Hey, George.
Say
oh,
hi.
Adorable.
Okay, he put his head on the table.
Bear.
Yeah, he got to go in the creek too. He likes the water. Okay.
Well, I think that I'm just so glad that you and your family are safe. And
yeah, first and foremost, that was.
I just that makes me. I have tears in my eyes. And it's I'm speechless. That is. But I think the one thing that it can't take from you are those memories, you know, that the creek holds that you guys have. And it is, you know, it's just one day at a time for sure.
Yeah. All the, you know, I think anything you think of saying to yourself or anything, like maybe you're thinking of saying in response, that's George drinking water. If you can hear that sound, I don't know. I think, they all sound to me when I think them to myself and tell myself these ideas, they'll just kind of seem like cliches, but they're true. We've heard, you know, breathe, take one day at a time. It's just stuff, like all those things are true. And it sucks. I mean, it just like it, you know, and it's like you don't feel strong. You feel the absolute opposite of strong.
Yeah.
That's okay though. You don't have to pretend you're like some resilient. He wants to get up and look out the window.
I think that's a really solid point. You know, I think if anything has. Aww.
George, what do you see? He likes to sit and look at the ocean there. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, he's got a blue mind
So
too.
that's speaking of, you know, what does help. A good dog helps. A good dog who also loves the water with you is helpful, you know.
Yeah. Mine sure does. She's asleep on the couch, but she's wonderful as well.
Well, sorry to take the conversation in a little different direction, but
no, you're totally okay. I think that it's I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm so sorry because it effing sucks. I'm actually speaking at an artist summit at the end of this month, and my topic is F insecurities, you're a badass. I'm going to be sharing my story of depression and anxiety. And a good friend was telling me, you know, Jess, he explained it as, you know, when you're in that hole, you know, just as you are, you know, people can tell you, you know, one day at a time, but unless their house is burned down, you're like, you don't know what it's like. Like, I could never imagine what it would be like to lose all of that. So yeah, the only thing that people have are those cliches of like, breathe, it's gonna be okay, and you like go after yourself. Like,
the universe has your back, or something like that. Like, cool, fuck you, universe. You know.
Exactly. But I think it's great.
Well, you know, you say that, you know, you don't understand unless you've experienced it, and hell, I hope you never experience it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so whatever challenges you're speaking about at this conference, like nobody understands your challenges. And I hope they really don't ever understand them, because they're not fun. And, you know, whether it's struggling with insecurity or depression or anxiety or having your house burned down, or you don't need to have those experiences. I'm not wishing them on anybody.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, you definitely don't. But I do think that there is comfort in having someone else understand what you've been through.
Yeah,
whether
sure.
it is,
Yeah, definitely.
the loss of a loved one, or someone falling to cancer, or your house burning down, or the passing of a dog.
Yeah,
Someone that can be
right.
like, I've been there. The pain is terrible.
Yeah.
It super fucking sucks.
And I
And
can tell you it lasts a while, but not forever. Like that's what
yeah,
I've heard from a few people who've had their house burned down, and they're like, doesn't, it's not a short-lived pain, but it diminishes and it doesn't last forever. Uh, and the cliche stuff, like there are lessons, I mean, say from your experience, you know, you've learned a lot, and you've learned so much that people are asking you to come and speak about it.
yes,
So that's maybe it's the consolation prize,
yeah,
it's like you went through this crap that we don't wish on anybody, but you learned something and you're a communicator, and now we would like you to share what you've learned, so that there's some value in that.
the silver lining to a shit cloud.
Yeah. Yeah, a shit-shaped cloud, is that what you said?
A silver lining to a shit cloud.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I to kind of bring it back to um, the theme of a little, but uh, you know, I recognize the limitations of the blue mind concept, as well as the utility of it more. And it's not like, hey, your house burned down, so hey, let's just go surf. It's
Yeah,
all going to
how
be
that works.
fine. No, it doesn't work that way. Or hey, your brain is not working the way you want it to. You feel like crap. Let's just jump in the water and solve all the problems. Of course not. Uh, but I can say that at the lowest of lows, getting in the water feels really good.
Yeah,
Let's just leave it at that. It feels really good when nothing feels good at all.
yeah,
Um, and I was just talking to someone the other day. This blue mind thing is not a new idea. It's one of the oldest ideas. It's You'll find reference to it in every single culture, every spiritual tradition, every sacred text speaks about water being good for your body and your mind and your heart and your soul. Every tradition. And in the Judeo-Christian tradition, Old Testament, 23rd Psalm, which is a song, it's one of the most quoted. It's the one that starts, "Yea, though I walk through the valley shadow of death," which feels like I've been walking through some death valley lately. Uh, the psalm says, "Get your butt down to the water. It'll soothe your soul." That's what it says. So it's 3,000-year-old piece of text written by King David. And 3,000 years ago, it says, "Having a shit day? Get your butt down to the water. It'll be better."
yeah,
There it is. There it is. So, and or how, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that's like red mind. That's just hell and
yeah,
burnout, literally. It could be literal fire, could be literal war, could be depression, could be anxiety. But that's the valley. Um, and we're all walking through some valley for sure,
yeah,
especially these days. And so what does that ancient wisdom tradition say? Get to the water. It'll soothe your soul. Straight up. I mean, there it is. And so the science, fast forward 3,000 years, if we can, and the science says, yeah, oh, it, the science wouldn't say it soothes your soul. It would say it creates a feeling of um, mildly meditative, euphoric restoration, and describe the neurochemical signature of that feeling. Less cortisol, more serotonin,
yeah.
um,
But I definitely see
slower.
that, in marketing terms, soothe your soul kind of takes that and puts it in a nice box.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And for a large percentage of the planet, that sacred text has meaning, and there it is, So again, climbing out of our narrow, non-spiritual minded, non-emotional science, ecological science sort of box blinders, thinking we're going to fix the ocean, and saying, wait a second, take those blinders off. What if one of the most beloved passages of one of the world's great sacred texts says, being by the water soothes your soul when you're having a bad year or a bad day? Can we use that as a way to protect and restore our lakes and our rivers and our oceans? And the answer is, of course.
Yeah.
But not, let's study that for 20 years. We're there. Let's do it. Let's use that insight and that those words, and so yeah, I throw that ball over to you. Like, pull up the 23rd Psalm, paraphrase it, like, having a shit day, soothe your soul by the water.
Yeah.
And can you make a meme or something? And let's make that thing go viral.
Definitely. I mean, I'm gonna add it to the list for sure. Yeah. I think that should literally just be the 2020 meme.
Yeah. Shit year. 2020. Shit year, aka Valley of the Shadow of Death. Let's turn to the 23rd Psalm and see what the suggestion is. Yeah. Get your butt in the water. Saith the Lord. Yeah. Exactly. No, it's from a communications perspective. If I'm speaking to an audience that I know has a Bible in their home, let's just put it that way. I'm not saying it's a hardcore religious group of people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're Christian or Jewish or evangelical or just show up and sing at church once a year, or synagogue, or whatever. But it's just a group of people who think that particular book is useful in some way. I'll quote it. It's like, why wouldn't you bring that into the conversation, knowing that it resonates with the people you're speaking with?
Yeah, and I would bet and I'm not a betting person, but I'm pretty sure that probably every religion has something very similar to that.
It's true. Yeah, every religion has has water, I think, at a very base spot in the belief system and the practice. Let's just throw this out there. The Dalai Lama, his full name has the word ocean in it twice.
Really? Wow.
His full name. So
I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's super.
I'm not gonna. I'll let people explore that a little bit on their own, because it's worth get your Google on and look that up. But the translation to English of his name has the word ocean in it twice. So again, to the point being that water is in fact the basis of life. We can say that factually. It's unique on our planet, in the universe. There are probably there are other water planets, but they're not super duper common. And it has influenced people ecologically, economically, and emotionally for all history, not just people, all beings, all organisms. And we get the story wrong mostly when we leave out the emotional piece. You can call it spiritual, you can call it emotional, whatever. But we get the story wrong, dangerously wrong.
Yeah.
And we undervalue water as a result. And when we do that, we see what happens. Our lakes, our rivers, our oceans get further degraded because the people whose job it is to fix it get the story wrong.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
It is.
I mean, in the ocean world, you hear the ocean preamble that's used all the time. The ocean's 70% of the planet, gives us half of oxygen, gives us, billions of dollars worth of economic activity and jobs and seafood, governs the weather and the climate. True. Those are all true statements, but that's probably the most boring thing you could say about the ocean.
Right?
If you want to create a tiny little shrinking movement, use that.
Yeah.
And then we use that boring preamble with a bunch of meaningless statistics and somewhat inaccurate at that. We won't go into that right now. But we pivot off of that boring preamble, and then we go into fear, guilt, shame. And then we follow it up with a few more factoids. And then we wonder why our movement
And we're like,
is,
hey, you should do something.
yeah. Hey, join us. And they're like, I'm bored, and now I'm sad, and now you're bugging me.
Yeah. I'm just going to pretend that I heard nothing and go on with my life.
Yeah. And the people who can survive that pitch because they're so hooked already, because they had an emotional experience,
Yeah.
stick with it, because they're not bored, because there's something on the inside of them pushes through the bad pitch.
Yeah.
And that's really, sadly, so if we upgrade our communications to include, the emotional component, which, it's not only artists who can access that, but it's helpful to have creative people help us access that.
Well, we're all creative in different ways.
Yeah. But I mean, like I think there's a way better ocean preamble to put out in the world that doesn't begin with 71% of. That's like,
True.
please, no, don't say that again. This is the most pointless factoid.
It's just the face palm, like, no.
Like, what's your point? A lot of the ocean covers a lot of the earth. Cool. Got it. I knew that when I looked at the map. 71%, or is it 69.8%, or is it 71.2%? Well, now we're not talking about anything. And then the 50%, every other breath we take comes from the ocean. It's just not like breathing doesn't work that way. Like ocean, forest. No, it's
right.
like
It does not. It does not.
It doesn't. And it's not 50%. I mean, this is factually wrong. So misleading, factually incorrect, irrelevant, boring talking points, instead of like learning from what actually motivates people who love the ocean, even who live in Ohio and don't get to the ocean very often.
Yeah.
Still, it's the longing for that feeling that, is the beginning of the conversation. Exactly. Then you can get around to the bad news eventually. Don't lead with it. And if they're interested, the factoids. But anyway, that's my rant on that. So.
But I think it's great. I think that, I think having conversations like this is going to be really helpful to people that are trying to get into this mindset. I know that a lot of people on my channel, I think, are just going to eat this up and just kind of be like, because they haven't been exposed really to the blue mind. I've touched on it a little bit earlier, but now that I love that you took the time, despite the shitstorm that is your life right now, to do this, because I know that the people that, when I post this, that they're really gonna really enjoy it. I think that we've had a really good dialogue. Is there, if they want to learn more, what website should they go to? What would be a good place for them to go to?
My preferred answer would be do a search for Blue Mind, just the term Blue Mind. Okay. And then if you're into swimming, add that word, or if you're into turtles or sharks, you'll find the Blue Mind Shark Connection written about. I have a website, but it's really like the last place you need to go. Okay. Really, there's been a lot of work with Blue Mind by a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so if your interest is in emotional mental health, or working with first responders, or tends more towards the alternative world, or tends more towards the neuroscience journals, um, add your keyword to Blue Mind, and then you'll find something that connects it.
That's
That's
perfect.
it's a
I
little bit harder than giving out a simple URL.
But I feel like we've come full circle. It goes back to trying to put your entire life into a section in the bookstore. Like,
Yeah,
it really does apply to anyone. You just add the main keyword that you want to, that's most in your life, and you'll find it, which is
yeah,
super amazing.
and that's been our strategy from a communications perspective. And I'll take the heat if my communication strategy is considered crappy, because I'm just a turtle biologist. But my goal is, I don't know how many people visit my website, and I don't care. And maybe that's come across. I'm not trying to get clicks. I'm not selling clicks. I don't benefit from clicks. I don't want clicks.
Yeah.
I want the ideas to be on your website and your website. And if you're listening to this, I want Blue Mind is not somehow being utilized in your work and in your personal life. Let's fix that.
Yes.
If you work on ocean stuff and you don't mention Blue Mind, or whatever words you want to use, in your mission on your website, come on, you got to get out of the 80s, get into the 2020s.
Yeah.
It's time. And so access the science, access the ideas, and update your communications. I'm here, I'll help. Anybody that wants to do that, that's my life. So if that doesn't make sense, let's talk. We'll make it
I
make sense.
I think that's great. I think that that's a really good way to get it out there, because it's really about just spreading the message, having one person
Yeah,
spread it to another, and doing it passionately and honestly and in a very kind way. I think that's
like that blue
important.
marble, right? Those blue
Yeah.
marbles that you've given out to so many people. That's it. Like, if you just keep doing that, and don't let anybody talk you out of it, it's amazing what you look back on a year and go, wow. I mean, even your podcast, it's like
Yeah.
you start it, you're like, wow, I have one. And then you're like, now I have two, now I have three, and then you look back on a year, 2 years, 5 years, like, wow, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and a lot of people have listened.
Yeah.
And it's one at a time. And there you go, there's a cliche. One day at a time, one podcast at a time,
One
one
podcast at a
blue
time.
marble, one turtle. Just
I love it though. Absolutely love it.
yeah,
And I think it's very, it's one step at a time. It's all just doing one thing at a time. So I loved this time together. I
yeah,
think
thank
that,
you.
maybe down the road, once past the house stuff, we should definitely do this again. I know that we'll get
Definitely.
some really good feedback. But I'm going to go ahead and hit end on the record thing, and then you and I
Okay.
can wrap up. But I just want to say to anybody who's watching, thank you so much for taking this time to hang out with Jay and I. And we really appreciate it. And spread the Blue Mind, and definitely do the Google search. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to email either one of us. And we will definitely talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much.